Then let's take a look at what does work. What is a recipe for success in relation to moving forward? I think there are a couple of things to highlight, all of which I've touched on in the first two parts of this presentation. Number one is I think that there needs to be a lot of attention placed on framing this stuff through an experimental framework. Um, there's a lot to be learned. The field is moving, your stakeholders are moving, and I think it's worth setting up small scale experiments where you can test out different kinds of tools, different kinds of approaches, set up some very clear questions that you'd like to answer in relation to the tools, in relation to your capacity, in relation to the stakeholders and how they'll interact and react to all of this. So I think that's one key component. And a way to do that is to really just look at opportunities that exist. Maybe you want to go online with a newsletter that you've been printing offline. Maybe there's a new initiative you're launching and it provides you with a good opportunity to map current activities as a way to help you launch new activities. Look for opportunities. I think another important part of the experimental piece of this is that it helps make it easier for people to access the learning, to access the experience, to be part of it. As you'll notice in the video that Jim Houlihan did, the CEO from the Blandin Foundation, I interviewed him, and you can find a link to that on this platform as well in the Summit Toolkit on the Council of Foundations Web 2.0 resources page. You'll hear Jim talk a lot about culture and leadership within organizations and the role that plays. I think attentiveness to that is critical, and experimentation makes it easier for foundations, I believe specifically, who often find themselves somewhat constrained, less risk-oriented, maybe more risk-tolerant, to access some of the learning, to get involved with some of this stuff. So I believe the experimental framework really provides you with a variety of benefits. I think taking a step back is critical, looking at what are your overall goals with that particular audience, with that constituent group is critical, whether they're grantees or trustees, whoever they are. Alumni who have come through programs, maybe they are partner foundations of yours in the same geographic area, whatever. Another component of success is knowing your stakeholders, knowing what their characteristics are, knowing what their interests are, knowing what their needs are, knowing what you need from them, really understanding that audience, that stakeholder group is central to success, whether it's a small scale experiment or whether it's something much larger scale. It's really understanding and knowing that audience so you can then position the experiment to respond appropriately to what it is that you know. So I'd say that's kind of a core component, a lesson learned of Web 2.0 tool usage, advanced technology usage online. I think another recipe for success here is to really look at, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of these videos, to look at capacity. And I do not mean to overemphasize just time and money or expertise at the expense of capacity to absorb change. A lot of this is about change for you, for your online stakeholders who you connect with. It's critical. It is absolutely central and critical that you know before stepping in, at least somewhat, what the absorption rate is, so to speak, of change. Is this a group that is going to be able to absorb these changes? Is this a group that may react negatively to that? I think you need to even look at that internally within the foundation. as a change agent, if you're going to be looking for opportunities to launch experiments, to dip your toe in that way, you need to really know, okay, is it the grants department that makes more sense to dive into that? Is it this other capacity building program that we work with? Should we maybe do something there? It's to really think that through. And so again, I think that you're looking at kind of organizational aspects that sit underneath a lot of this. I think another part of the recipe for success is being aware of what are the range of possibilities going online. And this is where you really need to rely on those people that you connect with in these presentations, who are often in a privileged position of being infomediaries, I think some of us like to call ourselves. We see a lot of information, we're able to think it through, we're involved in a lot of projects, and so we can help with that. I think, of course, going out, speaking with your foundation colleagues, looking online, hunting around makes a lot of sense as well. But of course, the resources that we've provided you with are going to be very valuable in this effort. So I think that those are some of the key components. I could go on and talk at more length about leadership and culture, but I'll let Jim Houlihan do that in the video that you will find on the Web 2.0 COF session page. There's a lot more to go into here, no doubt. I will be in the future facilitating conference calls. I'm calling them case study conference calls, where we will look at individual tools, we will look at strategies, we'll look at specific cases where people are deploying this stuff and what we're learning from that. So that's it for the moment. Again, there's much more to say. There's a lot to think about here, but hopefully this was somewhat helpful in framing some of this for you. You have access to a lot of superb resources that have been pulled together for you by Gavin and Laura and Amy and myself. Hopefully, via this video, via those resources, you will feel as if you're better positioned to get into this stuff from a position of strength. That's it for now. Take care and be well, everyone.